Hello everybody, Frosty Mayhem Gaming, and we're oh no, don't do that. No, why did you do that? No, no. I don't know. And today we're gonna do some Shadow Cat stuff. So, I lost this document a while back. And so, I actually am gonna have to trace over my own document. The cat underneath is not mine, but the tack is. Oh, it's gonna be fun. Lower the opacity there. Another layer. Grab. Fine tip. Make sure I'm on the correct layer. And probably bring that up. Maybe 60%. And small. Because this actually does give me a chance to redo it. I didn't. And gonna need pressure and smoothing. Guys. Tracing over my own lines. Yay. There's gonna be a lot of spinning. Spin. Those lines thicker. Huh? It's almost the same thickness as the original line. So at some point it's opacity. Alright. Yeah. This. Don't judge my handwriting. I might just have to make it not perfect. It's too much. What does this do? Okay, so if I so that's not what I don't want that. Yeah, because that's not good. They're not no bueno. Nope, not gesture controls. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest. All of those feel the same. So I'm just gonna. That'll work. We're gonna be doing a lot of later thing. Yeah, looks like it. Alright. Good allergies. Hi. No, no, I do not need you in my lap. I do not need your weird, drooly self in my lap. Hey, off. I gotta remember to freaking breathe. Breathing is like a thing. So, basically, shadow cats are these giant cats that um so they're cheetahs, right? Most of them are based off of the cheetah. They're all off of the cheetah. They just, have odd things. Um and somewhere along the way, this random person, I can't pronounce his name, found a cheetah. Had been breeding cheetahs and found one big enough to ride, right? And that cat entered the circuit and decided to uh, they raced them against horses. Straight lines. Happy New. Um, so he bred some other cats, and those cats were also huge, and they were able to take small jockeys. And over time, they developed the shadow cat, big cat racing, and they domesticated the cheetah. So, that also helps. But too low on the butt. No, no, that'll work. Um, so in real life, I study um, horse biomechanics to a point. And the horse biomechanics are neat and everything. It's really interesting when you're riding a cat. So cats are interesting. We're just gonna shape. Just gonna remember how this works, and just gonna turn all that off real quick. So, not only are cats technically predators, so they have been domesticated. These are domesticated giant cats. I know that doesn't help the thought. Um, is their ability to. I said red. Their ability to flex in their back. Unlike horses, who have a fairly limited range of motion, cats have a massive range of motion. Okay? Their front legs can come all the way out to here. So take this angle and bring it there. So you would have the shoulder. Like, that's not an uncommon angle for a cat. And that's part of the important thing. So when you draw them, you know, and this is, I'm not actually good at drawing anatomy. So they come up here, have this leg in here like this, further up. What you don't want, okay, switch colors again. Pink. White. What you don't want is you don't want this part of the shoulder blade under this part of the saddle. If you do it in horses, they get scar tissue in their scapula. And it becomes spongy. They can also have all sorts of issues like limited range of motion. They're going to be tense in their back because they hurt. All of those fun things, right? So you want this cat to have as full of a range of motion as possible. Without interfering with cat biomechanics. So another thing is in here. In here. Horses can go from basically straight to usually when they're running. And, you know, this would be the tail. This would be the tail. And even if they're getting water sprayed under their tail. So that would be... Technically, they have that tail clamped. So you have to think about the sacroiliac joint, which is specifically this joint. Technically, it's this joint right here. And that is an important joint. What it does is it takes the pelvis can't draw pelvises, but the pelvis, which is stationary, the spine, which is not stationary, and it makes a joint that can move. So the spine can do all sorts of weird things, right? This is not as flexible. This whole area tends to go up and down. It can't curve. So you have to keep that in mind when working with horses and cats. Where the difference lies is in the back, in this opening. Because unlike the horses that, you know, could go from straight to and right, of course, tail, tail, tail. That just looks like bacteria. Cats can go from like this position, doesn't go down, it goes up. And go from a stupid position. Okay, so back, and then kind of like up, because their entire back is arching. To, again, entire back is arching, and so they can come way underneath. That's how cheetahs run so fast. So you would have hip here. Right? And front legs would be doing some weird thing over here. Legs, right? Technically, this would be much more arched. Not quite that much, but a good bit. Good bit arched. It looks stupid. You know what I'm talking about. So, you have to contend with these massive angles. Horses will almost, if they're at their rest, they'll almost never go to this. Unless you're doing specifically a stretch with them, or they're stretching, or something like that. So you don't have to really worry about the butt getting longer by much. You have to worry about it getting shorter. But in cats, you gotta worry about that other angle and how acute and how obtuse of an angel? Wow, I had a typo in real life. Angle it is. So to do that, physically to do that, cats, cheetahs especially, because remember these are cheetahs, have a massive ability to stretch in here. This area of skin is super stretchy. and they can take their leg from, you know, right here to like out here. Technically, it'd be higher than that, but maybe be if hip was here. In this exact hip and back position, they can bring their leg all the way out to there. Right. And if you look at the angling, make that bold, make this bold, you can see that's not a bad angle for a cat. That's not hard to do. And so you're worried about all of this in here. Everything from here to here, down. This is basically an open and closed door. This is your hinge. Alright, so hinge. And this can just swing. This can just swing however it wants to. Looking at the door analogy, because I think that's actually a good way to do that. So right here, approximately, somewhere in there, is your door hinge. This is not how door hinges work. It's a top-down view. So in here is your door hinge and your, you know, your wall and stuff, whatever. Your door can come from over here, and it can swing that's not what I wanted you to do. It can swing all the way back here, even all the way open. Alright. So you gotta think about that hinge. You really have to think about that hinge. That's a lot too far. And you do not want to mess with the hinge. And a lot of Shadow, when I'm making tack for them, I usually don't have things like this ring, this strap, and this strap in these areas. I usually have, I usually have a ring either right here, or a ring right here, and then it goes down. It does some weird stuff. I had an art somewhere that did it, but you got to do some weird stuff. But this is not a racing set. This is an endurance set. Instead of go fast for short periods, it's go for long periods. Keep going and going and going. And so we don't need to worry about this area as much, this stretching. Because there's not really going to be a time that you're going to want to run full out in an endurance race. Okay, so to those who don't know, endurance races in horses are basically when you go hiking, but fast. Get to the finish line as fast as reasonably possible. And the vets will check your horse. They are incredibly strict. Unlike vets of other disciplines, no, these guys are incredibly strict. Good. I like endurance. In endurance, because you could be going, you can look up the Tevis Cup. That's the most difficult. One of the most difficult races here in America. In Mongolia, they've got like 3,000-mile races. It's ridiculous. In endurance races, you want to be comfortable and secure. Secure could mean a saddle horn. Comfortable could mean where your leg sits is comfortable. Just imagine there's a stirrup here. And where your butt sits is comfortable. You need to be... So if your butt's sitting back here, right, pelvis, your leg would want to be... Is that a long-legged person? Your leg would want to be underneath your pelvis. I don't think people sit that far back. I don't think people sit that far back. I think they sit closer to that. In that case, you would... Yeah, that makes more sense. Your knee would hit here because it's at the foremost flap of the saddle. And then you would bring your leg back under you. You want your heel and your hip. Heel and hip. Close enough. Just pretend there's a hip joint there. You want your heel and your hip to be in line. Technically, your heel, your hip, your shoulders, your head, all to be in one nice line. That's ideal position. Not everybody's bodies can do that. I have found that in long saddles like this, I tend to have a very forward leg, and that causes instability. I can't post the trot. You can look up a video of that. I'm not explaining that here. But a lot of people get like custom-made tack. They'll get like cushy seats. They'll get horns, and they'll get bucking rolls. For the horse's comfort, they'll get specialized panels that, instead of the normal, so most saddles are, So this is the butt. You have that, and then you have right, and these are the pads. And the pads are round, like this. For most horses, that's fine. But if you really want to like be super comfortable, especially if you have a horse with a very specific back angle or really wide back or things like that, you don't want to have to rely on this. Because oftentimes, these two are too close together. They really are like a lot closer together. Like, alright. And what that does is if you imagine a spine going through here, a horse's spine looks something like that. You imagine a spine going through there. If it's real pinched up in here, notice that that's just the spine. There's no muscle in that. And so that saddle would fit a horse with a back angle of this. So, spine. And even then, it's pinching this horse. There's no room for the muscles to develop as they normally would, because normally you would have a trough here in the middle and fairly healthy musculature. That's how the horse supports itself. But if these muscles, these long muscles, are weak, the back dips. So you don't want your saddle to pinch. And this saddle is pinching. There's no room for the muscles. So you don't want that. Some horses have really wide backs, like my horse. She has like a really wide back. I don't even know why. She looks skinny as hell. She's not skinny. She doesn't have a good top line. She never has had a good top line. I don't know why. But she requires a pretty wide saddle so that she doesn't get pinched in the spine. Getting pinched in the spine is not fun. If you've ever had spinal problems, you would know that. Neck problems, back problems, you know that every once in a while you get that horrible heat. Or that cold running down your... Yeah, all of that fun stuff. So instead of having the round panels, these saddles have flat panels. Usually with a floating seat. So this is not exact. So instead of being stuck at these angles like these saddles are, these can move around. You still have to be careful of your angle with here, but you don't have to worry as much about getting not only the gullet right, but the padding too. The padding sorts itself out. Another advantage is, while these are usually wool flocked, sometimes they're foam. Flocked is filled, wool filled. Sometimes they're foam. The difference between foam and wool is wool will, over time, meld to the horse's back if it fits correctly. So it'll go from, that to that. Instead of being all round down here. It'll squish down where there are pressure points and puff up where there are not. It'll move around. Wool flocked is a good thing. Foam flocked is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's cheaper. If sometimes they use solid foam. Excuse me, sorry. Sometimes they use solid foam, and sometimes they use little foam chunkies. If they use solid foam, over time that foam degrades, and that can cause pressure points. Again, you don't want pressure points. Your 100, 200, 300 pounds is on the back of an animal, but it's not really designed to do this. It would be like if your backpack had 2 golf balls. That's a perfect example. If your backpack had 2 golf balls, so, shoulder strap, right, and then backpack. That's not how backpacks work. Alright, backpack. You want this part flat against your back. Okay? An ill-fitting saddle is... These are too thin. You have a golf ball between your back and... How the hell did books work? There we go, that's close enough. Between your back and the backpack. You don't want that to happen. You want the backpack flat. Let the backpack be flat. Flat backpacks are good backpacks. So these types of saddles help flatten. Wool flocking flattens eventually, flattens to the back. I don't know if you heard that, but that was my elbow. Do it on the other arm? No. The other fun thing about wool flocking is when it gets too compressed and turns into a hard little rock, you can go in there with this. It's a long tool. And basically, you refluff the entire thing. I don't actually know what the tip looks like. It's a long tool. And you refluff the entire thing. And that way, the saddle, as long as the leather's good, saddle can be rechecked, reflocked. Probably every year. Twice a year, depending on your horse. But if you're not sponsored, I'm not sponsored. Saddles can go years without reflocking. Because when it gets funky, you just shove a rod in there and wiggle it around. Make everything re-even and refluffed. Okay, what the hell? We got biomechanics. On this cat, I decided to actually make the saddle sit there instead of on these panels, and actually turn this into a half pad, because that's what that looks like on the front, is a half pad. I think I meant it to not be a half pad or panels. I think I meant it to be gel inserts. Whatever. I'll figure that out. Another fun thing about cats is they can go from big chest and back to little chest and back. So biomechanically speaking, girths like this, like this, special, would not be secure. They're just not going to be secure. In those cases, you usually use a heavy elastic girth for racing and stuff, which is oftentimes what you use for horses too. Sometimes you'll use a elastic girth for horse races so that they can get all of the air they need in here. Usually, horses don't breathe in this area. Horses and most animals at rest breathe back here in this area. But when you're, running, you gotta breathe when you gotta breathe, and where you gotta breathe. You don't have a choice. Breathing. So normally, you wouldn't want this type of leather girth. In this situation, again, because we're not going to have the full motion of the cat's back, because we're not going fast. We're going... How do cats' backs work? We're not going fast. We're going steady. Cats keep their backs relatively still if they're trotting. Most of the time. Because cats are not efficient. Part of the reason you can't hear a cat coming? They use these muscles, this one, and the abdominal muscles are constantly flexed. And what that does is these being flexed stabilizes that. At a walk, you'll see the back move, but at a trot, to keep all this stabilized, they tend to not move a lot. You can use that to your advantage in endurance. It means that you don't need crazy tack, you just need tack that works. So, the next part is the chest piece. I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. This is not how this is supposed to fit. I don't think cats should have chest pieces at all, but you gotta keep the saddle secure somehow on a slippery little ribbon creature. So, ideally, you would have it come a lot further up without running into the body here. You want it to come up and then forward with the ring here. And that would give your cat the momentum, the ability it would need. If you didn't want to mess with right here, you could technically lower this. Lower it from up here to like excuse me, down here or something. And that might be better. But you do have to watch out for this muscle bulge. Muscle bulges, people. It happens. And if you go too low, you hit the elbow. Hitting the elbow is a no-no. And you don't want to sit in here, because this is pinch area. This is a pinchy area. Pinchy areas are bad. So, you'd have it come up, and you'd probably have it curve more like this. And then come down in a heavy curve. Come down in a heavy curve like this. To give the shoulder as much room as possible. And then you'd have it come way down. You'd want that to come way down. And then they reattach underneath. And you would want that to be pretty loose. Looser than you would have it on a horse. Because if you have something this loose on a horse, they're gonna frickin' manage to get their leg in that. So, ideally you would have something a lot more like that. Even higher is possible. Another difference between horses and cats is horses have really strong muscles right here. And their throats are exposed. So like exposed, and then kind of goes in. So the big muscles and the specific trachea, whole mouth thing, means that you can actually put one here and not do any damage to the horse. I mean, put it too high and you're going to cause issues, but horses have a broad chest, a not very flexible chest, and their tracheas go in and are protected by, again, these big muscles here. Cats don't have that luxury. They have big tracheas, compared to their body size. Fairly big. Because when they run, they need to get the air. Okay, now I'm just going into territory that I don't actually know. Alright, theory time. I think cats have big tracheas. That's why you can't. And delicate necks. That's why you can put a harness on your cat to take him outside, but you never put him in a collar to take him outside. You just don't. It's just not a good idea in most situations. Cats are delicate and they're shifty. You'd have to put it super tight up here to actually prevent them from escaping, and that's not good for them, and they're going to pull. And unlike dogs, they don't understand that when they pull, they're going to suffocate themselves. Dogs don't really either, but yeah. In Shedu, they don't necessarily have that problem. A lot of Shedu do wear a collar down here, or further up as an identification tag. And you can lead them by this collar. That's not an issue. You can see how thick the neck is. Most of the time, though, you lead Shedu by halters. Now, horse faces and cat faces, as you can imagine, are very different. If I had... So, this is the equivalent of a bit. It's a bitless bridle. They don't have the herbivore gap. If I had this actually go... Usually, I'm gonna bring this ear further up, because this is technically a plush. So if I bring this where I bring it on horses, see, that's not too bad. But what happens if I don't put the ring there? What happens if I put the ring here? Well, that's a little close to the eye for comfort. Not bad, not bad. Because you can always put a chin strap like a Cavasson. Some Cavassons have chin straps. But you're getting closer to the eye. Getting closer to the eye. You don't want to get close to the eye. Put it up here. You know, you're getting close to that eye. You don't want to be close to that eye. Makes more sense if you actually look at pictures of cats. This is, again, a plush. Not a plush that I drew, by the way. This is a wonderful artist named Ariyama. And they are amazing at everything they draw, and I love their style. I probably just butchered their name. Sorry. And horses, instead of having a big jaw, they have big jaw. Their heads are long. Big jaw. That's not what a horse is shaped like, but you get the point. And you run it from the ears, which are on the top of the head, down to where you want. And that's pretty stable. Horses also have a nerve point right in there. There's a part of the bone structure of the horse. And this is like actually a hole if you go look at a horse skull. There is actually a hole right there above where the noseband sits that has nerves coming out of it. And these nerves control everything. I think there's even one that goes back there. I don't know where the nerves on a cat head are. But in horses, usually the lower down it is, the less likely it is to hit that nerve pocket. The further forward this is, the less likely it is to hit the nerve pocket. Cats also have floppier ears, so they can just slip out. So that's part of the reason I have this design of pedestal. This is a bitless bridle, again. Cats don't have that herbivore gap like horses and rabbits, and I don't actually know if deer have it. I think camelids have really sharp teeth in that place. They don't have the gap. And so, you gotta worry with your cats about putting bits in their mouth. There's no gap. You can't do that. Sorry, I got completely off subject and forgot what I was talking about. So, you use bitless bridles. This particular one is a leverage. When you put pressure this way to pull the reins back, this strap right here tightens. Strap on the nose tightens. And then in a horse bridle, it would come up and around here. This strap would tighten behind the ears. Used in the correct hands and with gentle hands. Weight of the reins, people. Weight of the reins. If you have more than the weight of the reins, I don't know how to explain that. You bring it in until you just barely feel the horse's mouth with the reins. A study showed that horses prefer 3 pounds of pressure. Now, that's direct pressure, not pressure like that. So for curb bits, because they're more sensitive and more severe, and curb bitless bridles, hackamores is what they're called, you gotta be a lot more gentle with this piece. You always want to have a little bit of slack in the rein. Because if you change it by that much, that horse is going to know. And this cat is going to know. That's why usually when I design things for shedding and horses, I actually have a rein, a direct rein, attaching to here that you can keep a good contact on. And this one tends to... And I ride my horses in the French style. So instead of having my reins cross when they go into my hand, and here, I have mine. I have my curb rein down here, and my snaffle rein up here. It allows for very direct communication. You can decide, no, I only want to pull on the snaffle. Or, no, I really want to work with the curb. It's also a little on the annoying side, because most of the time, you put your reins between finger 3 and 4. You put your reins here. And they come up and out. And so you're used to twisting your fist like this for small corrections. And this finger, right here, you can squeeze it and unsqueeze it. You make a fist and you squeeze harder. That's the signal that you need to be giving to your horse. Make a fist, squeeze harder. That extra quarter, half an inch, few centimeters, depending on your hand size. Your horse can feel that. Your Shedu can feel that. So instead of having your rein here that you've had for like however long you've been alive and riding, you have the stupid snaffle rein up here. Sometimes you can even have it over this way, and then you have your curb rein under here, and the cross in the middle like you're weird water skiing. It's odd. I haven't figured out which one I prefer yet. I'm just now working with the curb. My horse knows the curb. I don't. I want to get a little bit more out of her. No, honestly, the answer is, while I would like to get more out of her, I need her to not saw my arms off. My horse, when she's being excited, not rude, excited, tends to get very heavy in the bridle. So instead of, the 3 pounds of pressure, the weight of the reins, she tends to push into it and go anyway. It is annoying. And it's not that she doesn't respect the bit. She respects the bit fine. When she's not being headstrong and excited to go places fast, weight of the reins. Sometimes I can even get a partial headset, with just my seat and no reins at all. Right? No. Or the other thing is, she decides, I live in a hayfield, and so the freaking grass gets up to here, right? It actually gets taller than that sometimes. And so I'm riding through it, and she just freaking ducks her head down. And I have tried just about every method in the book. I've tried everything from encouraging her forward with a smooch, which is more forward. Encouraging her forward with my legs, kicking her with my legs, bumping her in the mouth. I have done that. And I have jerked her in the mouth. I have given up on all of those strategies because if I kick her, she's gonna bring that head back behind the vertical, grab that thing of grass so that I have no rein, I can't bump her, and immediately pick up the trot or the canter. So I've given up on that. Being mean doesn't work. In fact, the meaner you are, the worse she is about it. So, instead of that, what's going to happen is I'm going to keep my hands up here. And she's going to put that head down, and that curb rein is going to go plunk. And she will feel that, not in her mouth as strongly, it won't hurt her, but she'll feel it in the chain and in the area behind her head. And she'll go, oh! She was taught as a Western horse that activation of the curb means head down. My goldfish is so freaking weird. Okay, off subject for a minute. I have a goldfish. She lives in a tank in front of me. This is the strangest goldfish. She is not sick. She does not have swim bladder issues. She does not have, I don't know, she might have parasites, but not enough to affect her behavior. She is a very happy, healthy goldfish. She's not fat. I'm very careful about feeding her so she's not fat. She can actually, for an oriental goldfish, she can actually swim really well. We have a 30-gallon filter on a 10-gallon tank. And she's not that big. But she does the weirdest things sometimes. When she's in a certain part of the tank, the current from the way overkill filter, which is really not as strong as you would think it would be, pushes her tail more than her head. And so as she's looking at rocks on the bottom, she's just slowly rotating. And then once she gets to about here, she swims upside down and rights herself. And I have watched her, and the first few times she did, I was very concerned. Alright, I was very concerned. I am now convinced that she does this on purpose. She does weird little somersaults when she's not trying to eat rocks. This goldfish is going to die because she likes to eat rocks. Yeah, your swim bladder was a little unbuoyant, wasn't it? She just went up and got air to fix her buoyancy. Anyway, she's a weird fish. And she eats all of the plants. The only time I managed to keep the plants where she didn't eat them was I had enough plants to fill the entire freaking aquarium. And it was guppy grass. I put in a crap ton of duckweed too. She ate all that. When I took some of the guppy grass out because she had no room to swim, she ate all the guppy grass. Like, I had half of an aquarium's worth of guppy grass. I took half of that out, so I had a quarter of aquarium's worth of guppy grass. She ate all of it. I don't understand how this goldfish can eat that much. They don't even like to have powerful mouths. According to loose goldies, they do have teeth, though. Never to find a tooth. I've got gravel. Anyway, again, she's perfectly healthy. She's a smart little bugger. She's very afraid when we first got her. She's learned to be not afraid and actually come up to us when we walk by and beg for food. She just... She's just weird. Oh, and have you ever seen a goldfish sleep on their side? Again, not injured, not sick. But when I had the... Usually she sleeps at the bottom of the tank. She kind of just sinks down and is still for a while because they don't have eyelids. But when I had all of the guppy grass in there, she would torpedo herself sideways into the guppy grass and sleep. Okay, the first 10 times she did that, it looked like she was in distress and stuck, and I was gonna have to go get her out because, again, goldfish, while they are smart, they're also stupid creatures and do stupid things. Okay? She's actually tired right now. Her fin is drooping a little bit. And she's real active. Her dorsal fin is all the way up. Really, really tight. When she's tired, it tends to droop a little bit. So she's actually kind of sleepy right now. But I was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to rescue her from the guppy grass. The first time or two, I did rescue her from the guppy grass. And then I just sat here and was like, I wonder if she can get out. And I watched her. And after about a 10-minute nap, 5 to 10 minutes, she squirmed her way out. Like a weird little torpedo. But during the time she was asleep, she was on her side. Like, didn't float to that direction. Like, actually put herself on her side. She doesn't have ick. Again, she's not sick in any way. She just... The guppy grass was apparently calming or something, and she liked being hugged by it. I don't know what her deal is. Like, I know betas. I used to have beta fish too. I think I like beta fish more than goldfish. But she's here to stay for the next 20 years. Oh yeah, goldfish live for like... A well-kept goldfish with decent genetics can live for 20 years. Wow, right? I had tarantulas at one point. The females of that, one of the species I had could live to 30. There was one that lived to 45. Which is specifically why I did not get more than 2. Because I didn't want to have 200 and then in 45 years be like, what am I supposed to do with all of these? Because I'm 60. What am I supposed to do with all these dang 8-legged critters? Anyway. Really off topic. What I was talking about was this strap. This strap. Alright, we're back to the shadow and horses. Well, this cat, when that curve is activated, it comes back. Stupid pointer pointy arrow. It comes back. It tightens here, here, and here. Because this is such a big area, it doesn't really do much. Sure, the cat can probably feel it, but it's not gonna encroach on their ears. It's not gonna pinch their jaw. It's not gonna do any of that. It's just not. And that, the reason it's shaped as wide as it is for another reason. It's a collar. So that's why it has this. It's because it's actually a standalone collar. You can take this off, and just try to cover it with my hand. and only have this part, they actually disconnect. And sure, it's got the weird little rings on it. The rings don't do much. They just kind of jiggle. Big, nice, comfy collar with serious hardware. This is brass or steel or whatever. And these are joints. A pin goes through these. So they actually joint. And it is a little bit curved on that front piece. It's a little bit curved. But the joints actually have a pin going through them. And it allows them to go whatever they want. And of course you have to buy certain sizes for certain cats. You measure their throat and all that fun stuff. If you want a perfect fit, you can use a coat hanger or something similar, and you bend it how it's going to fit on the cat. You can do this with horse saddles too. Bend it how it's supposed to fit on the cat. You can make a map of their neck, and these guys who produce it will send you a custom. So basically, all of this comes off. Not their face, but you know what I mean. And it just turns into a collar. Then, when you're ready, you just reattach this. Bring this loop back tight. I'm assuming there's a buckle on the other side. Put it under. And you're good to go. Make sure their ears are set right. You don't want to like half put ear in. This is also big wide comfy noseband. Big wide comfy noseband. However, you'll notice that if you draw a straight line, not only is it not even, but ignore that, I cannot figure out how to draw this. It stays back in the bone of the nose and not the cartilage. So, let's see, cat cartilage, cat bone, be like here, big nose, to the mouth, eye socket. And so, in fact, this peak may actually be from the back. No. And you don't want pressure from the curb to put pressure on the cartilage. There's a lot of cartilage. Bone is very strong. Cartilage, not as strong. Flexible, but not as strong. That's why you can like bend your nose around. But if you feel your nose, you'll feel bendy, 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 hard. That hard bit is bone. The other problem about cartilage is not only is it a little bit more delicate, can't handle as much pressure, because it's bendy. It doesn't heal good. It doesn't heal good. Never has, never will. In children, it's decent, but if you break a bone, that's going to be 6 weeks, right? If you damage your cartilage, there's a lot of cartilaginous places. That's not the correct version of that, but you know what I mean. Anyway, if you damage your cartilage, like your ribs, for example, perfect example. Ribs, you come around, and then you have cartilage. You have some bone, and then you have cartilage somewhere in there. And if you land on them and you damage that, it could take 12, 14, 16 weeks to fully heal from it. Because it doesn't get a good blood supply. Bones are blood factories. They literally make blood. That's where all your blood comes from. It goes from your bones, the excess is stored in the liver. When you need blood, your liver dumps blood. Helps all those processes happen. Cartilage has a terrible blood supply. Absolutely horrible blood supply. And so it can't get the nutrients that it needs as fast. So that's why it takes forever to heal. Also, I'm not really sure if it's living tissue. Like, parts of bone are living tissue. I don't know, I study muscles, bones, and fascia, not cartilage. But you don't want to break the cartilage. Usually when you break your nose, you're not breaking the bone of your nose unless you really slammed into something. You might chip it, but you're not breaking the bone of your nose, you're breaking the cartilage. Well, if you put too much pressure here, for example, you'll force their nose down. And that's not good. Then they can't breathe. And cats, as uncomfortable as it is, it's not as big of a deal. I still wouldn't do it. It's not as big of a deal because they can breathe out their mouth. And horses are obligate nose breathers. They can't really breathe out their mouth. They can cough, and they can burp. Some of them can burp. The sphincter that prevents their vomiting does not always prevent gas. If a horse has gotten good control of its esophagus, it can actually very slightly control that sphincter and burp. My horse burped. I have one horse that can. Now I got 3 horses that can, and one that until recently he couldn't. He couldn't figure it out. And he gas colicked several times because weather pressure dropped, and then he had more gas because the pressure dropped. And then he couldn't burp it up. Made him feel really bad. We thought we were going to lose him. More than once. No, he's fine. He just has horrible, horrible gas, and we've figured out how to manage it so he doesn't do it again. And I swear, one of these times, I'm gonna go to Walmart. I'm gonna buy like 6 bottles of simethicone. Simethicone is gas X. I am not a doctor. This is not medical information. You can't really OD on gas X. Gas-X is very, for the most part, a very safe medication. I took so much of it when I was younger. I had such horrible, horrible GI issues. I don't know what the hell was wrong with my system. The norovirus is what was wrong with my system. But I didn't eat good for like 3 years or something. It was bad. They threatened to put an NG tube in me. And then I was like, yeah, no, the nausea from food is not as bad as an NG tube. And so they finally convinced me to drink Boost shakes. And just deal with the nausea. By that point, I was healing a little bit better. I also lived off of ranitidine. It's the stomach medication that they think causes cancer. Depends on how you store it. In modern days, I switched to famotidine. But modern days, I don't really have to take anything for my GI. It's all pretty stable. I have IBS. That doesn't damage the stability of it. I can eat whatever I want. Bread, wheat, tomatoes, acidy foods, fish, lemon heads. I love lemon heads. Sweets. My system pretty much treats it all the same way. The only thing it doesn't like is coffee. But even recently, it's not been caring about coffee. I swear, it's the weirdest IBS. I just have pain. No other symptoms. Sometimes gas. And no other symptoms. I don't know why. Just pain. And then, like, 2 weeks later, I'm like, ah, yes, the pain is gone. I can renew normal activities. And buddy, good boy. And pet you. Okay, I've gotten off subject like 4 different times. Anyway, Gas-X. Good medication. You can give it to horses, you can give it to dogs. I'm not a medical professional. If you follow this advice, do it at your own risk. And you can take famotidine for period cramps. H2 inhibitor. Good stuff. Period cramps are aggravated by histamine 2s. Again, not a medical professional. Do it at your own risk. It's what I do. I'm stupid. Don't listen to me. Anyway, some horses can burp. Some can't figure it out. Some don't figure it out until later in life. Some horses never figure it out. I don't know why, but when Frosty first came, she burped all the time. I had, like, legitimately no idea. She didn't show signs of ulcers. I'm amazed she didn't have ulcers, but she didn't show girthiness or not wanting to go forward or anything like that. She was just nuts. I figured it was psychological. I don't. She may have had ulcers, but 24-hour pasture turnout. All the hay she could freaking hoover. That horse can hoover so much hay. And after a few years, you know, of good diet, your stomach ulcers will get better, oftentimes. If they don't, antibiotics. Pepto-Bismol. Hers seemed to get better. She doesn't have any sign of them now. She doesn't even burp. Unless it's a weird day. Yeah. I don't know. She wants to lick the dirt. I don't know what that was about. I spent more time talking about the biomechanics. Horses and cats. Giant rideable cats don't exist. Dog just banged his head into the desk. Then drawing. And I'm tired now. And so I'm gonna go. How do I do this? It was fun ranting about biomechanics to y'all. But I just talked about the fun stuff. Stuff nobody talks about. Got so much more in my head. Maybe I'll do a horse biomechanics stream. Like, actually a horse and not a giant